Hello and welcome to this episode of Wings Podcast. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri. On today's show, we will meet Akshay Vaidya, a young man from Pune, who is a mechanical engineer by education, but a sound engineer by choice. Since he was a kid, Akshay was always fascinated with films. His choice of being a sound engineer has provided him with an avenue to channel his childhood fascination into a very important creative part of filmmaking. He joins this podcast today from Gaganbauda, a beautiful small town nestled in the Sahyadri mountainous range of western Maharashtra, which is about 5 hours drive north of Goa. Hi Akshay, welcome to this show.
Hello, Milind Kaka. I'm glad to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Let me begin by first asking you, how does it feel to be on the show, and what do you think about this Wings podcast as an idea?
So when Asha Maushi called me, I and we talked about this entire podcast idea of you guys. I really liked it because this is something that we don't get to hear or see a lot around us, in the sense that sometimes we know somebody who's working in something, even if they're in a conventional field, they're doing something out of the box inside it. I think this will be a good way to get to know more such people, and see more interesting stories of what people are doing in their lives, other than what we hear normally around us. And sometimes those stories fascinate me because, as you mentioned, I like cinema, and sometimes cinema is about some like stories like this, or stories like these, which are not ordinary, and that's what kind of attracts us to it.
Very interesting. You're drawing parallel between the idea of Wings as a storytelling medium to the world of cinema or films that you're a part of, which is, of course, is an extremely powerful medium. So thank you for drawing that parallel. But tell us, us and or to all our listeners, what are you doing in this place called Gaganbauda? What is this place like, and what are you doing there currently?
So Gaganbauda is a really small town between Kolhapur and the Konkan region of Maharashtra.
Mhm.
And this is my first time here. When I'm spending so much time here. I have been here before once, maybe when I was a little kid with somebody, on a family vacation or something like that, because it's a very popular tourist spot. Uh, but I've been here for about a month now, almost like 1 month and a few days here and there, and it's been really magical. I haven't seen a multi-storied building in the past 1 month, and that has been a very nice change in the scenery. As far as what I'm doing here, I am on the film shoot of a Marathi feature film, and it's a very interesting story. Uh, it's set in a very different locale than what we usually get to see in Marathi cinema, which is centered in the cities or something like that. But we are shooting in the jungles of Gaganbauda, around the village, and it has been an experience because we are shooting totally in the exteriors, and uh, it's 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 really interesting to shoot in a very such a silent location where there is nobody around you, like there is absolutely no one there.
So I would like to believe that whilst in this beautiful dense jungle of Gaganbauda, you're actually in many ways walking paths which are probably very new to many. But interestingly, you are a mechanical engineer by education, yet you chose a path of being a sound engineer. Um, when and how did this happen to you, and why, if I could ask, Akshay?
Yeah. So interestingly, it starts out in the opposite way. So
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned, I don't know how this fascination started or why, or I've never been able to trace it back to one point that this is why I like films. But since childhood, I have these vivid memories of different films, watching different films, and they are varied films. Like, and I don't know how those films have stayed with me, but those are the things which kind of guided me in a way. Like my azoba used to like a film. I think that film was called Jab Jab Phool Khile, Shashi Kapoor and It's an old film.
Yep.
Baharo Phul Barsao.
Correct.
And I have this vivid memory of the family just sitting in a living room and watching that film on a VCR, just
Okay.
because my Azubai would like that film. Or
Okay.
my Ai used to watch few films, and I have memory of sitting in the house and watching those films with her. Nobody really, put me on this path in a way that, my parents didn't say, "Ki, ha, picture, like, watch this film, you'll like it." We just watched it. It was entertainment, pure entertainment at that point. Or my first real memory of, very, remembering a film is Rosa. The
Okay.
music was the debut of Mr. Rahman.
Correct.
And music is basically what has brought me to where I am today in the field that I'm working in. So it started with, I like music. I used to listen to music a lot. Then as I got older, I used to read the back sleeves of the audio CDs that we had. And for the first time, I think it was mentioned that who has played the instruments, who has
Mm-hmm.
done the post production for the audio. And I used to wonder, okay, these songs sound great,
Mm-hmm.
but what are these other people doing? What does it mean by mixed by somebody?
Okay.
And that name used to be on every record that Rahman made.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow I made that connection that the composer that we love so much, has a connect with this other guy.
Mm-hmm.
His name appears on almost every record that he makes. So he must be playing some contribution.
And he
And then
appears as a
I
sound,
think around
as a
2010,
yeah.
his engineer, his sound engineer. This was the guy who mixed for Rahman. His name
Okay.
was
Okay.
H. Sridhar.
Okay. Go ahead.
And around 2010, I think this Mr. H. Sridhar passed away. And at that time, I think the album for Delhi 6 released in the stores.
Mm-hmm.
And as usual, I just got a copy for myself, as I would eventually do for a Rahman album. And I opened it, and there was a dedication to Mr. H. Sridhar.
Oh wow.
This record is for this person. I
Wow.
miss him. And that's when it hit me that the sound that I loved so much was being molded by somebody else as well.
Okay.
Just there's a person behind the curtain who we
Okay.
never get to see.
Mm-hmm.
But A.R. Rahman trusts that person so much that he lets every song pass under his hand before it comes out.
So, would it be fair to say, Akshay, I'm new to this world of sound, especially sound mixing in films, but would it be fair to say that this aspect of sound is probably as much science or technique as it is art? Would it be fair to say that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like I trade a very fine line between technical and creative aspects.
Okay. Can you say more?
So my work on the surface looks very technical, that I'm working on softwares which are dedicated to sound mixing or sound designing. I'm using terms which are not very common knowledge, but
Okay.
I'm contributing in a very creative aspect to the
Mhm.
song or to the film, say. So if I'm mixing a song, the composer gives me 50 odd, 60 odd tracks, how many odd tracks he has on his, in the track as individual tracks, like one instrument, the other instrument, voice tracks. There must be rhythm sections, other rhythm sections, other guitar sections, string sections. Now my job is to mix all of this in such a way that it all sounds cohesive, and yet it is still in the vision that the composer was seeing when he made it. Because he now what happens is he to me saga record karta, you record everything, or to answer your question, I my work is like a thin line between a creative and the technical side of things. I have to use technical things to uh, put in creative feel to the final product. So in a layman's term, my job would be, if you consider a jigsaw puzzle with many pieces, the composer or the director and the sound designer as a mixing engineer, being me, they make that jigsaw puzzle with different pieces. Like there are many jigsaw puzzles, and now my job is to be the glue which will hold all of those pieces in place even if I turn it upside down.
Interesting. So then the beautiful Rahman piece that we as listeners enjoy is not just the magic of the composition and the singers and the various instrument artists, but what I'm getting here is the sound engineer also is a part of that magic. Would it be fair to say that?
Yes, he's the one who, yeah. He's the one who makes it all sound cohesive. He's the one who makes it sound like one single thing.
Awesome. So,
There may be 100 parts playing at the same time, but you still get a feel that it's just one song.
and of course, the whole idea is that here is probably science and technology in service of art or music.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, but the end goal
yeah,
is the aesthetic aspect of music.
yeah, exactly. And similarly, in case of films, though I'm putting different sounds at different places for the visual cues that I'm seeing on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to become so invisible that the audio just flows with the video or whatever you are seeing on screen. And then my job also becomes to be the storyteller or become the storyteller for that film through the sound. The director is telling the story, the cameraman is telling it through the visuals, and now I am the director's ears basically. I have to tell that same story through sound. I cannot go on a different path than what the video is going or what the visuals are going.
So it's a very beautiful articulation that you've just done, Akshay. I think uh, probably what I'm hearing from you is your presence or contribution to a film is actually coming through your absence.
Yes,
You're probably behind the scene and yet making it all happen.
yes, yes,
Awesome. And
yes.
and I'm sure it must be a very, very technically challenging field. It would require a lot of skills and knowledge to do what you are doing. Um, Tell us, how did you build those skills and capabilities, and what sort of education or skills building process that you went through for this?
First and foremost, I completed why I went through mechanical engineering and all of like a degree course is because I wanted to go to the Film and Television Institute of India, and they have a requirement that you need a degree in science if you want to do a sound course at our institute. You
Okay.
have to have a bachelor's degree in science, some science faculty.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what eventually I said, okay, I'll just finish engineering and let's see what happens by the time I ended. But by the time I ended, I was actually, part of a lot of theater activities and whatnot. And, I was doing Firodia Karandak, I was doing Purushottam.
Mm-hmm.
And that guided me more towards storytelling aspects of entertainment and not just music.
Okay.
Till that time, I was more in music because I had come from a music background. I had learned keyboard as a child. Then I realized that I can do this. And then I started giving Trinity College exams. I did some of that, but then it got sidetracked. But when I came to college and I did theater for the first time, that introduced me to storytelling, and that's what grabbed my attention. That now I can do much more.
So how
And
important? What? So what you're saying is storytelling through theater experience is also a part of being a sound engineer. Would it?
yes, because you have to understand how stories can be told.
Okay.
Because if you're doing sound for a theater performance, which is a live performance, you have to do certain things differently. Now
Okay.
you have to cater to that style of storytelling.
Okay.
If you're doing sound for cinema, it's a completely different medium visually. You can do a lot of the things differently. There are little less limitations in cinema.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why understanding those processes, that's when I first got to get involved with people just like me, kids who had come with dreams of becoming a director. How does
Mm-hmm.
that guy think?
This is in the Film
Or somebody
Institute of.
who
This is in the Film Institute in Pune.
no. This is in my college. This is my
Oh.
engineering college. I never
Okay.
went to FTI.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't go there at all. So I was coming there. So after this, I again wanted to go to FTI, but I think they did not conduct admissions that year.
Mm-hmm.
There were some backlogs and whatnot. And that's when I decided I'd go to the US and finish a 9-month course. And I found an institute in Arizona, which is called Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences.
Mm-hmm.
I completed that course in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
And then followed by that, I did an internship in Los Angeles at a
Okay.
studio called Larson Studios in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this 1 year really shaped my thoughts
Mm-hmm.
about being in this field, because that's when I discovered what really goes on behind the scenes in a studio and how it happens. That was the first time I experienced it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
I had been inside studios here and there, but that was more to satisfy my curiosity, and not when somebody else is there to guide me through each and every step, like my professors were in my school. The other thing I learned there, which was very important, was that the best education you will always have is on field.
Mm-hmm.
In my field, in this in cinema as a industry,
Mm-hmm.
because there is only so much you can learn in sitting inside a classroom, because whatever happens is never going to happen inside a classroom. It will always happen on a film set.
Correct.
It will always happen on a when the music performers are performing,
Mm-hmm.
or in a setting where you are actually recording music. That's when you'll get to learn the most amount of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I loved my coursework also, because it was so concise, it was precise. They were very clear in their idea that we'll prep you for an entry level position in this field.
So tell us more about this whole thing about what you learn. That this art or science can best be learned in as a field experience. You were saying something about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the professors we had, they were pretty clear about this motto. We had our school hours were just 4 hours, afternoon 3 to evening 7 p.m. And there was another batch which had morning classes. But post 7 p.m., all of the studios in our campus were open to all the students. So what we can do is basically we can book a studio 48 hours in advance. And now, since I've booked the studio, it's my responsibility to record something, do something with that space. So either you can ask your classmates or you can ask other people. So what we used to do is, since it was a university town, we used to just hit the bars on the weekend, and we used to chat up with the bands playing there. And we used to ask them, okay, we have a studio free of cost for you. Are you guys up for recording day after tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Now we have an artist. Now we have somebody whose music we don't really know, or we don't have to come up with new music because it's just the same people who are playing it again and again. Now we have a band who really has something which they want to get recorded. Now we get them into the studio. We have all the facilities. Since I have booked the studio, I will be the head engineer for that session. Then I decide who my friends are going to be. I'll need one person doing certain things, the other person miking up the instruments, the other person doing up the patchwork for cables and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And I decide all of the other things. What mics do I want on what instruments? Where do I want the instruments to be placed around the studio? And then we used to have an 8-hour session where we record 2 or 3 songs with this band, and we mix it for them, and then we give it back to them free of cost. Now, since we were students, we weren't allowed to charge professionally for it, but we just used to do it because we want to get better at doing this. When we get the chance of asking money for it, we know where we stand. So I spent most of my school time doing this.
So how has been your journey from being a sound engineer as a student to a sound engineer as a professional? How did that transition happen for you?
So because we used to do this so often, like every other week, some of us would have a session. By the time we got out of school, I had a basic idea of how I work, how my workflow is. If I have to mix a song, what my workflow is. And that sort of helped me to transition into a professional sound engineer. Like, see the pitfalls. Because when I am a sound engineer as a student, I don't care how my mix sounds at the end of the day, because I'm just trying my hand at things.
Yes.
I'm doing it for free for the other person. Also, okay, now it's my responsibility to make it sound as good as I can make it sound. But I don't have the added pressure of, it necessarily going out for a release, because the other person also isn't very committed to it.
Yes.
They also just got a chance on a fluke.
So you were, you had an option of, after your education, to stay back in the US. You were right in LA, interning at a studio in Hollywood. At what point did you decide that you don't want to stay on there but come back to India? And what were you thinking? What was the thinking at that point in time for you?
So to be fair, I never had this choice completely made that I'll stay back.
Okay.
When I went to the US, the thoughts I had in my mind was that, okay, I don't mind coming back. Let's see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And there were two factors really of why I came back. The first one and the primary one was that uh, after the internship that I got was not a paid internship.
Okay.
The studio at that time was looking for unpaid interns. For me, it was fine doing an unpaid internship as well, so I took the chance. But once I completed that, the studio did not really have any openings at the time. So 2 or 3 interns that we were at that time, everybody had to look at some other option. Now the other interns were, people who were US citizens. So it was easier for them to just stay on and do odd jobs. And there were many other factors contributing to it that I couldn't work on the visa that I had.
Mm-hmm.
But I was totally fine with everything because, and that's where my second point comes in. I had grown up watching Indian films.
Okay.
Hollywood came to me later.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I love and adore filmmakers from all over the world, it was always Indian cinema which brought me here in the first place. It was always music made in India which brought me here in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very comfortable with the idea of working in Indian films. But in addition to that, before I went to the US, I had made a few contacts, because that's what drives the industry in some respect. You cannot deny it, that it works a lot on the know-how, who you know, who knows you, a lot of those things.
So, how long, Akshay, have you been now working as a professional sound engineer in the Indian film and media industry now?
Roughly around 6 years now.
And can you tell us of any proud moment that you felt, wow, I think I've done a good job? Any experience you can narrate to us and to our listeners?
Yeah. One very vivid experience was on the release day of my first feature as a sound designer. It was a film called Bapa Janma by Nipun Dharmadhikari, directed by Nipun Dharmadhikari. Sachin Khedekar was playing the protagonist.
It was a Marathi film.
It was a Marathi feature film.
Okay.
It came out in 2017.
Okay.
September 2017.
Bap Janma, right?
And yeah.
Okay.
And me and my wife, both of us worked on that film. But both of us couldn't attend the Mumbai premiere of the film because we had some other commitments.
Okay.
And so we made it a point that we'll go to the Pune premiere. And when we reached there, and Sachin sir came, and that was the first time I met him after I had dubbed with him, which was like 6 months before the release of the film. And he saw me, and the first thing is that he hugged me and he said, "Khub chhan aaiku ye film."
Awesome. What a moment where you have the a star of Marathi film, Sachin Khedekar, the hero, recognizing your work. Awesome.
Some other experiences have been, I recently mixed the background score for Nagaraj Manjule's upcoming Hindi feature. I don't know when it's going to release, but that was certainly a beautiful experience for me because I have adored his work since his first release, and that I was, I had never dreamt that that opportunity will come up so easily. And I say so easily because it was just the way it happened. I just got a call from my friend who did the music background score for the film, and he said, "Asa sahe, and will you be ready to mix it?" And I was like, "Why are you even asking?"
Isn't this the same film of Nagaraj Manjule, the Hindi film, which has Amitabh Bachchan in it?
Yes.
Oh, wow. What an opportunity, Akshay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was really fun working on it because, like, Mr. Bachchan being in the film was not so exciting for me as much as, my end result or my end product is going to be reviewed by Nagaraj Manjule, and, he's going to take a call on how it sounds because it's his film. And background, because things so happened during the process that background music took a very center stage of how the story was being unfolded on screen, because the edit was very tightly fit. It was meshed with the music, and that's the way they wanted it. So it's become it really was an experience, and it was fun.
So apart from giving joy to yourself, I think would it be then right to say that the person whom you are actually doing your work is the director of the film?
In some ways, yes. But before that comes the music composer who has trusted, again, like I
Okay.
said before,
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm.
has trusted his music in my hands. The guy who can make it sound the way I want it to sound in a theater.
Okay. So the music, satisfying the music director, the music maker,
Yes.
is the first step, and then of course going forward
Yes.
satisfying
Absolutely.
the director, because music is one piece, the jigsaw puzzle that you spoke of.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
beautiful. So Akshay, tell us, here you are with a professional education in the area of sound design and sound engineering, with a bit of international exposure, and 6 years into the industry. uh, how do you see your own future panning out for you? What do you see yourself doing in the next, let's say, coming couple of years? What are your dreams and hopes for yourself?
Okay. I really always find this question very challenging to answer,
Mm-hmm.
because I've never had the answer to this question, primarily because, sometimes I don't like to really dwell on it, in the sense that I'd rather concentrate on what I have on my plate right now.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever will come, will come. But in a general aspect, I really do myself see myself doing more of such work of what I'm doing currently, because right now I'm at a very happy place work wise. I'm working with really interesting filmmakers, and not just big films, because I recently worked on a few short films which were so beautifully made. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
20-minute piece, but there is so much that the filmmaker tries to tell through it. I got chance to work with a couple of female directors, and that was a different experience, because this industry is so male dominated at times,
Yes.
that hearing a fresh female voice is also very important. I really
Awesome.
got I got an opportunity to work on a couple of documentaries which were really really interesting topics. One was on the problem of stray dogs in Ladakh, and how they are putting an imbalance into the picture of wildlife versus stray dogs, and really creating a nuisance. And the other one was about a South Indian man who has created a common dictionary for all the four South Indian languages. So it's just one single book, but you have four languages worth of material in it. So work like this also equally excites me.
So variety and doing diverse work for diverse filmmakers, be it long film format or the short film format, feature
Yeah,
films or documentary films, uh, and having a good day at the studio. Uh, you know,
yeah,
what a
absolutely.
what a nice way of defining one's own wish and dream going forward. So Akshay, it has been an amazing conversation with you, and I'm sure our listeners would have also enjoyed this conversation. Looking at somebody who's walked a very different path in the very large canvas of films, but having chosen the area of sound design and sound engineering. So wish you a lot of luck and a lot of success for you in your life. It's been a pleasure
Thank
to
you so
have this
much.
conversation with you. And before we end the conversation, if you have a few things to say
Mhm.
in terms of how has this conversation been to you, how did you feel at the end of the show?
uh I don't know, it's really I feel satisfied in a way that I got to talk about a few things which I have never really talked about, you know of how exactly small things like music from Rosa has affected me, because sometimes people might find it strange, but that is one album that I just go back to at any time. I feel like that has
Mm-hmm.
been like a constant, or things like that. It's never, you don't really talk about these things in your daily life, and it was really good to reminisce on some of my memories from the US, because it really made me think about my friends and my professors at my school, which I miss. It was just a 1 year experience, but I know that I've gained friends for a lifetime, and that was fun.
And
because at that time we found it very silly that we are just going from bar to bar and trying to find people who will come with us. But today I see that it really helped me.
and I'm sure Akshay, you will find many new friends in our listener community who would listen into this podcast episode. Thank you once again for being on the show,
Thank you so much.
and look
Thank
forward
you
to
so
meeting
much.
you
I
soon.
really loved it. I really loved talking with you, and I hope I get to hear other many such interesting stories through the Wings podcast. I'll be sure to keep track of it.
Absolutely. Thank you once again. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you for your time today, my dear listeners. This is your host, Milind Agnihotri, signing off. Goodbye, take care, and stay safe. This podcast is for general information purposes only and should not be considered as a piece of any professional advice. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of its guest. Creators of this podcast expressly disclaim any and all liability or responsibility for any direct or indirect, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of this podcast. For feedback and suggestions, please write to wingsindia75 at gmail.com. Thank you.